So let's dig a little deeper into the potential short and long-term consequences that tariffs could bring. CBC's senior business report correspondent Peter Armstrong is here. So Peter, the announcement in a couple of hours will bring more specifics, we think, but we don't know. And sometimes what Trump says and then what's actually on the order paper can be different, but it's not likely to end the uncertainty. So what's the potential impact for Canadians?
Look, this is huge. It's undeniably big. The fears and the anxieties that Canadians have are 100% justified. And, you know, we've talked a little bit about the economic consequences. We could see GDP shrink by like 5.4% in the second quarter of this year. We could see unemployment rise. We could see inflation rise. The main thing this is going to do is add deep uncertainty to an already uncertain situation. And, you know, an economy grows when you see people investing in it. And right now, when you look at the Canadian economy, who's going to invest in all of this uncertainty? When you don't know what kind of market access you have to your biggest trading partner, when you don't know how these supply chains are actually going to work, that uncertainty, I think, is one of the sort of unspoken things that Donald Trump and this administration are actually trying to accomplish. They'd way rather see that investment go into plants and to warehouses and to facilities and fleets of trucks in the United States than here. We are going to feel it pretty quick. And how we feel it, right? Like all of the American tariffs are a tax on Canadian goods going into the United States paid by Americans. On the flip side, we Canadians are going to pay whatever retaliatory tariffs the Canadian government comes up with and slaps on goods coming into Canada. We are going to pay those. But that deeper, broader uncertainty, Andrew, I think is something that is going to be, in 2018, they slapped tariffs on steel and aluminum. Not most of us work in either the steel or aluminum, and yet we felt that right across the country. That was just on two small slivers of the economy. These tariffs we're talking about today are ostensibly on everything going into the United States, and 10 to 20%, that's a big swath of the economy. That's everything going into the United States. We're all going to feel that right out of the gates.
Yeah, exactly, because, you know, and it could lead to job losses because there won't be as many exports going. And then the retaliation, as you say, I mean, the federal government has said it would be maximum pressure with minimal impact, but how that all plays out, the president of the United States has repeatedly said this is all about making Americans richer again. Is this going to work?
Well, look, every study we've been able to get our hands on that aren't just kind of the musings of somebody like Peter Navarro, who says this is, you know, he keeps saying that tariffs aren't a tax, they're a tax cut. What he means there is that they're raising enough money to pay for Donald Trump's tax cut. They're not a tax cut. They are a tax on consumers and on the stuff they buy. And it's going to increase, you know, the range is anywhere between $2,000 and $5,000 per American household will have to pay in extra costs over the course of a year. It's not going to make anybody richer. You can, however, to give them some credit, you can sort of see through that and understand the argument is if we make it harder on everybody else, and if we're bleeding investment out of Canada and into the United States, and we do reshore manufacturing and production to the United States, that could work. That is costly. That is painful. That will upend 70 years of trade policy, not just from the United States, but around the world. If you are willing. It would definitely take years. So look at an auto plant. It's between $2 and $10 billion and take up to 10 years to build one of these things. It would be very hard, very difficult, and very expensive. And you have to really stick to your guns, I guess is the point. If you're going to do that, you got to see it all the way through. It doesn't work if you're sort of on the one hand saying we want to introduce tariffs, but on the other hand, you're handing out exemptions and you're negotiating breaks here and there, saying, well, we don't want that industry to get hurt, so we'll take the tariffs off of them. And that sort of split in how this administration is approaching that is one of the problems in accomplishing these goals.
So I'm asking you this next question. I feel like this could be two different questions, though. Can Americans and the president stomach the political costs of all of this? Because, you know, I feel as though maybe the American president can and wants to. I don't know.
I'm not sure that he does, because on the one hand, he keeps trying to introduce these policies that would upend 70 years of trade policy. But on the other hand, he's handing out all these exemptions and negotiating ways of bringing these tariffs down. You can't have it both ways. But for consumers, if you're looking at who's going to blink first and who's going to stomach the pain that is associated with this, You got, on the one hand, American consumers who didn't want any of this. They wanted the price of eggs to come down. They're not going to be happy at the price of everything going up. And on the other hand, you've got Canadians who see this as an existential threat. Which side in that is going to be willing to tolerate more pain? My money's on the Canadians, but we'll have to see.
And think about that. I mean, $2,000 to $5,000 just from these tariffs. I mean, that is
and from the retaliatory
retaliation.
Tariffs, the way everything sort of piles on, and that's on the 20% blanket tariff on everything. But look, Andrew, we're hours away from this. Bloomberg, the Wall Street Journal, the major financial news outlets in America say they are still at this moment figuring out the details of this plan. There's one economist who keeps saying the thing he's going to look for in all of this is spelling mistakes, because it's a sign of how quickly they had to write it before they finally released it. This is coming down to the wire, and it seems like within the administration, within cabinet, there's a difference of opinions as to what they should be doing and how they should be doing it.
And the fact that it's happening after 4 o'clock, after the market's closed, that can't be a coincidence.
No, I mean, there's a lot of information packed into that little, that they're waiting until markets close to put this out, because the last thing they want is, usually you'd see in the little box on the corner of the screen here with the Dow plummeting as the president makes this. That's not a great look on your television release. So they pushed it to whether that's how markets react or not, because as we've talked about before, so far at least, markets don't buy it. They don't think this is going to happen.
He says he doesn't watch the markets as much anymore. I don't know. That's true. That's what he says. Okay, Peter, thank you. CBC Senior Business Correspondent Peter Armstrong.